Is it me, or does this feel like a while since we've done this?
It does, feels like ages.
It's been nice to have a break from you. I do need a break from
Agreed.
you. Just once in a while, you can get a bit too much for me. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well, turn off WhatsApp then and stop messaging me.
So we're in to Get Your Mind Right today, and we've got a really important guest today, but it wouldn't be one of our shows without me first checking in. I'm guessing that we've got you to thank for Boris Johnson keeping the gyms closed.
Yeah, it's
I'm
my
guessing
fault.
you've upset him somehow, have you? You've been round to his house and pissed in his garden or something.
Fieldgate, yeah.
Something like that. Something like that. Seriously, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? How's life?
Loads. So obviously my 8-week challenge is now 2.5 weeks in, and got 84 ladies on there doing
84.
really, really well. Yeah.
That's amazing, yeah.
And then I was planning on having a little break until October. However, I've had a ridiculous amount of interest, like people literally begging me to do one soon, because I think obviously Boris said gyms can't open again, and a lot of people have realised the sun's out and basically want to kind of get their shiz together. So I'm launching another one on August the 10th, which has gone mental already, and that goes live to book tomorrow. So
well, you'd have only been flying to Mexico, wouldn't you, instead? Is that right?
Yeah, I was supposed to be going to Mexico today for 2 weeks, all inclusive.
What would you rather be doing?
Saving the world.
Yeah, serving the public, or sitting on the beach eating sugar and all the other stuff. I've been waiting for this moment actually, Leanne. So I just wonder, how long do we want to leave it in the show before you say the magic words? Simon,
you were right.
You were right. So viewers have probably seen the first 3 episodes. In our part 3 of weight loss, we talked a little bit about elimination diet.
Yes.
And just for anyone that hasn't seen that episode, we hope you go back and watch it. But in real short, Leanne and I discussed the possible benefits of her undertaking a 28-day elimination diet, which means no yeast, no wheat, no sugar, no dairy, no tap water. And Leanne sort of said there was a few symptoms she was working on improving.
Yeah.
Why don't you just update our viewers whilst I sit here and smirk about how well it's gone?
So I'm a week and a half in now of, obviously, like you said, no dairy, no wheat, no sugar, etc., etc. So a typical day for me is like eggs and salmon and spinach in the morning. For lunch I have mackerel salad. Dinner I have like chicken with sweet potato and veg, or something along those sorts. Lots of berries and fruit and stuff. But yeah, it's going really, really well. So my skin has improved loads.
What? Your skin's improved on elimination diet? No.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never known that.
My digestion as well.
Your digestion's improved on elimination diet? Oh my God.
One of the biggest things I've noticed as well is the response of my body to not using whey protein through my digestion stuff. So that's been a bit of a game changer. But for the first time in my life, I'm actually struggling to eat the calories, because obviously most of the food is very nutrient dense but not calorie dense.
For people that maybe watched part 3 and thought, oh my God, I would never do something like that, how difficult and restrictive has it felt versus how easy is it?
It's not actually as hard as I thought, because obviously you can eat loads of really good food, and it does make you feel so much better energy-wise and mentally, because I know I'm fueling my body with natural, healthy food. But it isn't as hard as it seems. It's quite hard when you live with someone who eats biscuits for dinner, breakfast, lunch and dinner, but I think when I know what I'm having and I know what I'm doing, it's not too bad at all.
Yeah, I think there's probably an initial sort of a bit of fear and doubt, and then you go shopping and you just buy the right things, so they're the things that are in the house, and then I think it's very easy.
Yeah.
I think I referenced in episode 2 or 3 a lady I'd worked with who'd come to me to try and get pregnant, and she was 42, and at that point she'd been trying for so long that she'd almost given up.
Yeah.
She just came to see me because she was referred by a friend, and I thought it'd be relevant to just talk a little bit about what I told her to eat in the early phases, because every time you text me I say, are you eating enough, have an avocado, and you think I'm joking. Well, we talked about a very typical sort of path that people have tried to lose weight, that where they've been on, for example, very, very calorie restricted, very low fat, which we know can kind of wreak havoc with the endocrine system. The lady in question who had the child at 42, I made her eat 3 avocados a day for the first 3 months. Her breakfast, for example, was something like mackerel and kippers, and always eggs. You'd always have eggs. She ate a lot of liver. You turned your nose up, didn't you, the other week when I said about how good liver was?
Yeah, offal's not my thing.
My point being is that she was eating very high quality, and she didn't pay any attention to any of her calories. So we talked, I think, episode 2 about, I said I focus on quality over the calories, and then you balance it out over time. So I hope that you're enjoying your elimination diet. It certainly would appear that you've got some very, very initial good returns.
Yes.
I knew you'd get those returns because everybody does. Some people get a little bit of a detox. So if anybody's listening to this thinking, oh, it's working for Leanne, I'm going to try that. Yeah. Some people get a detox when they come off sugar. That can be horrendous.
Yeah, I literally had a migraine the first day.
Yeah.
And I, touch wood, haven't had one for ages, but the first day was tough. And I think that was also caffeine, because I was drinking tea all day, and I still have a couple of teas with soy milk, but not.
We'll soon get rid of that.
Yeah, not 7 cups like I was before, and I was just my head was.
Yeah, that's quite. Normally, people get some withdrawal for maybe 14 to 21 days, maybe, and it just depends how bad their diets were. Yours wasn't really that bad. You just had maybe some foods in there that weren't serving you very well. Yeah. I also said in part 3, I'd recommend it for everyone. That stands. Do I think that a number of people would fix very, very common problems very quickly? Yes, I do. Yeah. You're now saying it's not actually as difficult as you think. It isn't. And once it becomes a habit, there are other things that will happen. So I think your taste changes. So people that have been really high, four sugars in their tea, eating whippies every day with Biscoff like you.
Husband.
Yeah, like your husband and Candy Crush. Something wrong in your marriage somewhere.
It's fine.
Those things can change quite quickly. So what happens is maybe they go 28 days, and then after about 2 or 3 months, someone gives them some sugar, and they go, oh, that's horrible. That's really sweet. So you'd be surprised. I think if you can get through 28 days on elimination, you're probably through the worst of it. So do you want to say the magic words?
You were so right, Simon. You're always right.
Why do people think I'm arrogant? Yeah. Where does that come from? Wouldn't have a clue. We should probably touch on the fact that obviously we're filming this just after Boris has very kindly told us that we can allow people to go and get drunk in pubs and kiss each other and tell each other they love each other, but they still can't quite yet come back to the gym. We should just let members know that we're planning on opening the outdoor gym. We're just going to confirm how that's all going to happen. We've obviously got phenomenal outdoor gym facilities, so we plan to open those so members can get in. I believe the restriction is 6 people per space. We've still got to do a little bit of checking on that, but we plan to get those going.
John was out there yesterday with the power washer. He
was, and didn't he do an amazing job?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Okay, we better get into today's show, don't you think?
Yes.
Have you finished gassing now? Yeah.
I finished listening to you. Yes.
All right. So when me and you talked about starting our podcast, and we talked about our outcomes, we said, listen, we want to be of service, and we wanted to get our viewers' minds right. Yes. Okay. One of the things that I hope we can do today is we can almost provide a little bit of inspiration to people. How do I think we can do that? With our very special guest, I'm going to introduce in a moment, who's a great friend of mine, someone I've known and been very good to me for a number of years. I hope that we can kind of highlight how there's a wonderful facility in our community that all of our members should be really proud of. For example, we have great grammar schools. We unfortunately lost Studley now. I think those are the types of things that our communities can be really proud of. I think they'd be really proud of this school. And I also hope that we can get across in the right way that the courage that some of these children show and the things they might overcome is, to me, incredibly inspirational. Absolutely incredibly inspirational. This is my thing. You know, we've talked about call-ins and passions. This is my thing. Just chatting off camera with our guest earlier, one of my first memories in life are of this particular population and this thing. And if you said to me, what's my next 20 years, my guess is, when I toughen up and I'm not so sensitive, my guess is that this might be my thing, and Mike and I have talked about a project in the future that might serve this community. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you headmistress, am I right?
No, that's far too old.
The boss.
The
brains behind the phenomenal Mayfield College, and my friend, Rachel Hawthorne.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to Get Your Mind Right. So,
welcome to the experience that is.
Normally I answer sensible questions and Leanne just comes up with a load of shit about stuff.
Okay, I think that might be the other way around.
Someone else is on to you.
I obviously know a lot about Mayfield.
Yes.
Leanne knows a little bit about Mayfield.
Yeah.
I think it would just be interesting for our viewers that don't know anything about Mayfield, just to give a really brief synopsis before we sort of dial into the detail about Mayfield College, what it is, what the outcomes are, what it's trying to achieve, etc.
Okay, so Mayfield College is part of Mayfield School. So
Sure.
there are 3 schools in the Bay. There's one in Brixton for children with emotional behavioural difficulties. Then there's one in Torquay, which is our main site school, for children with profound learning difficulties
Yep.
or severe learning difficulties. And then we now have the college, which started, this is its 5th year. So the college is for young people with all of those.
Sure.
It's open to all of those types of students who are post-16 students, because for our school we keep our students from 2 to 19.
Right.
2 to 19.
Wow.
2 to 19.
And obviously the reason why we take them at 2 is because nurseries wouldn't necessarily have the skills or the professionals around them in order for those young people to go to your normal, per se, nurseries.
Yes.
So we have it from nursery right up to post 16, so they stay till they're 19. So Mayfield is led by June Palmer.
Yeah.
Overall, June's been head there 25 years and is due to retire this year, which
Oh my
will
God.
be a real loss for the school.
Sure.
She is the head and the heart of Mayfield, and so everybody who passes through that become the head of the heart of all of their different areas that they cover, because that's what she
Yeah.
believes in.
Am I right in that it was June that I met when we raised the money for the specialist status?
Yes,
I think
that's
that was
exactly it.
2009 or 8.
9, I think.
I think it was 9.
Yes.
And Mayfield raised, and she was obviously a driving force behind
Yes.
that. So she's decided it's time to move on.
Yeah, she's made the decision that it's time to move on, although most of her SLT team, including me, have tried to persuade her not to, but
Right.
she is. And we have a new head coming in, and he's going to be fantastic. But what we also, saying goodbye to somebody who has been the heart of a school for
Yeah.
that length of time, who has seen it go from the old site, which
Yeah.
was in Paynton,
Right.
a really run-down site where there was, something like 80 young people there,
Wow.
to a site now where we're, at the top of the 200s.
Oh my God.
And she's taken it through, and it's split over 3 sites, and
Yeah.
it's
Really
an incredible journey that the school has had over time
Yeah.
with her at the helm.
I want to come on to the journey, and I actually want to come on to the evolution of services for children with learning difficulties, or
Yeah.
as the phrases have changed over the years, because obviously I've probably seen it evolve probably for 40 years, showing my age, and obviously I'm old enough to remember when it was horrendous and there was just so little
provision.
no provision.
No.
And I could, obviously with my dad working there, my dad working at Coombe Pafford, and we were saying some of my first memories, and I remember just how there was just nothing.
No.
There was just nothing. So
No.
I think we might come on to that.
Okay.
Okay, so how long have you been at Mayfield? Because I think I can remember Steps Cross.
Yeah.
So how many years have you been there?
17.
Wow, yeah, so I think I outdo you in the years.
17, but I started at Steps Cross though.
Sure.
My passion started at Steps Cross, but then I went over to Mayfield.
Yeah.
What is Steps Cross, sorry?
So I should probably fill you in here, and then I'm going to get Rachel to talk about how things have evolved. So stop me if I get this wrong. When my dad taught at Coombe Pafford, which is way back to the 70s and 80s, I think the split was essentially physical and mental, which of course, in practical terms, is complete rubbish, because people have a lot of difficulties that cross over.
Yeah, of course.
That the resources, also financial resources, I would say the understanding of how to give these children the proper care was kind of non-existent or in its real infancy. So that there was, huge classes, there weren't a lot of teachers. I think I'm right in saying that Coombe Pafford, like I say, was largely for people that were deemed to have, more mental difficulties. Steps Cross was for physical. I think Steps Cross closed in the 90s and became Mayfield. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What are your memories of Steps Cross and the transition? Because my memories are always of my dad saying, this is horrendous. There's not enough. There's not enough services to go around. These kids used to come home and take my old trainers, and as a kid playing football, my trainers were always beat up, and he'd take him in and say, listen, you don't understand, some of these families and some of these children, just there's nothing. I always remember we'd have, like, in January we'd have 10 new rabbits at home, because the children had been given rabbits for Christmas and they couldn't keep them because they just wanted support. So as a young kid, I always remember thinking, well, why have we now got 10 rabbits in January? Because my dad, being as sensitive as he was to these children, would do anything he could to try and help out. What's your memory of that period? I view it as almost a dark period because I see how things have evolved. Same for you?
I would imagine you would say it was a dark period, but then for me, coming from the outside in, having never been around those types of children, having had 3 children of my own and not really understanding a disability or children with additional needs, I actually felt when I went into Steps Cross it was an incredible place.
Sure.
So, okay, you can take away all the fancy kit and you can take away all the, the classrooms, they were really run down, and the site itself was run down, but the passion was there, and the knowledge was there, and the students were amazing, and just listening to their stories, and you're right, Steps Cross was designed to support young people with physical difficulties. So you've got young people who had been born with those physical difficulties, but you've also got young people who I remember one specific young man who had been caught in a house fire. And so therefore he'd suffered such horrendous burns. He then needed a lot of support emotionally, physically to manage the future. But they did, and they did move on, and the knowledge of the teaching staff and the support that was there was fantastic. So yes, there was dark days in the fact that they didn't have all the resources that we have now. But it wasn't dark in the fact that there wasn't people there that cared, because there was a huge amount of people.
I certainly didn't mean to imply that. I think what I meant was, being a young boy, and sort of my experience was, oh my God, there's not enough for these people. Do you know what I mean? There's not enough of the things that they need. How do you think, say, it's evolved? I think that'd be one of my questions.
Incredibly.
So, would you say that the understanding of their needs is the number one thing that's evolved? Yeah.
And I think for everybody else, I think anybody out there would say that young people with, or anybody that's got additional needs or learning difficulty, however you want to put it, they're more visible. You can see them. When I go abroad, you very rarely see young people or adults with learning difficulties in the streets of Malaga or Madrid or wherever it is that you want to travel to. Here you do. And that's because there's been so much more of an acceptance that these young people have a right to be within our community, and they are supported so much better to be in our community.
Yeah, I suppose one of the other things I think about is that maybe the bullying or some of the nasty things, maybe this is just my interpretation, it felt like back then it was a lot worse. And it definitely feels like now. I hope that
there's a new generation.
I hope so, because I remember some of the terrible things that would be said to these children definitely left marks on me. But hopefully, do you think we've moved on?
What a new generation. Yes, completely. I think all that has gone. I mean, gone from the days when I was growing up, where you would take the mickey out of anybody that was different, deemed as different. I don't think the generation now would dream of doing that.
So when did Steps Cross become Mayfield? So what was the sort of evolution? Was it like a realization, like, okay, we can't divide this physical, etc., or was it more?
It was a practicality thing. The Mayfield building was poor. Steps Cross building, the site that the Steps Cross building was on was larger. Funding wise, the Bay has got to the authority needs to make a decision about what we can afford, the Bay could fund at the time. So it made sense to amalgamate the two. And the site itself, where Mayfield is now, was the biggest site where Steps Cross was. So that's where they linked the two and amalgamated the two.
And at that point, was there kind of a change in the classification of who went where? How did that evolve?
Some students went over to Coombe-Pafford, and rightly so, because they were no longer separated into physical difficulty. It was about their learning levels. So any young people with a moderate learning difficulty went over to Coombe-Pafford, and anybody who had a severe learning difficulty went into Mayfield.
I think that's my memory of it. That's my memory. And
so that's how it happened.
What year would we be talking there? Would that be late 90s?
Yes.
Something like that.
It could have been 2000.
Right.
I can't completely remember. I can remember that I went for my interview to go over to Mayfield when they were on the old site, and I started, and I can't completely remember.
Yeah, my memory, as I say, as very young boys, my dad always saying to me, like, we haven't got this right. We're not doing this right. There needs to be, a bit of a reset in how we're sort of classifying where people go. I remember that from sort of the early 80s.
And I think the most positive thing that's come out of all of that is that when you look at Mike, who has been the head of Coombe Pafford for such a long length of time, and you're looking at June, who's been the head of Mayfield for such a long length of time, they work so well together.
Sure.
And they they're not going, they work together and in unison, and they support each other.
Yep.
So the schools themselves, because they're physically very close to each other, but also because the heads think in very similar ways. Yeah. So it's been totally a joint vision.
Yeah, we're going to have Mike on. Mike's OBE now.
He's now OBE, so be careful how you address him.
Yeah.
No language.
Yeah, no bad language, Leanne.
You've already sworn once, I haven't. Just saying.
Yeah, we're going to have Mike on. No. So you've talked about, the two head teachers who've both done phenomenal jobs.
Yes.
One of the things I said to you was about what drew you to it? What drew you to working with this, say, population, if that's the right phrase, or these types of children? What was it that drew you to it?
Okay, so I had 3 young children, and I'd done lots of different jobs, so I had no teaching qualifications at this point. So I was 31, and
showing your age, yeah.
I'm showing my age. So I was 31, something like that, 31, and I made the decision that I wanted to do a change. I was in a position, sadly, where I was on my own with the 3 girls. So I was invited out to Oldway Mansion at the time, and the Steps Cross were doing a fashion show, and a friend of mine said, will you come along, the kids are doing a fashion show, and I said, okay, I'll take the kids. So off we went, and we watched this fashion show, and that was the turning point. To watch young people who needed to walk 5 metres along a catwalk in an outfit, that obviously to show off an outfit, and it took them 10 minutes, but they did it with, calipers on, and they had a walking frame, but the faces just told you everything, that they were so... the strength of character that was coming from those children. And it was those children that when I looked at my own children, and my own children are adorable, and I'm not knocking them, but they would complain about, but Mum, I want some sweets, Mum, I want this, Mum, I want that, I want this, I want Nintendo this, or whatever it was. Those children didn't ask for any of that. Those children just wanted to be able to walk from here to here with the biggest smile on their face. And I know you've seen that, because when you came to do something at Mayfield, you were very teary that day.
I'm no good.
And I know, you are a bit rubbish.
Tell us, can we have some more details, please?
Yeah. And it's because it's an emotional journey. 100%. So that's where my emotional journey started. Yeah. Looking at those children and thinking, right, what am I doing? Why aren't I doing something here?
Yeah, I've often said to you, I couldn't do your job because I can't deal with the emotion. So the emotion for me is, I don't know if this is common for a lot of people, I feel guilty. I want to help so badly, and I feel guilty that I ever moan about anything when here. I remember coming to Mayfield and I think it was 7 or 8, don't know if I've ever told people this story, and you said, "Coop, we're doing an activity day." I said, oh, sweet, brilliant. I had done a lot with Coombe Pafford at that point in my life. I'd been in Coombe Pafford for 30 years, so I thought I had an understanding of kind of what I was going to come across. So I brought some medicine balls and some gym equipment. Do you remember that?
I do remember it.
And we went into this big classroom, and I met some of your children. And obviously they had severe difficulties, which I probably wasn't quite ready for. And I don't know if you remember, but we held the rope, and we tried to get one of the children. I don't know if I'd like to mention, I still remember her name.
I know who you're talking about.
So that is how much it impacted me. This is 13 years ago, and she jumped the rope. I'm almost going to start crying, Rachel, on a podcast. This is not
me crying in a minute.
I'm supposed to be the tough guy, but I remember
he wasn't tough that day.
That she jumped the rope.
Yeah, she did.
And I had to walk to the back of the classroom and look away because I had a lump in my throat and I was going to start crying. And I said to myself, "You soft sack of shit! You didn't come here to cry in front of these kids. Sort yourself out, man up, go do your motherfucking job." And that's how I dealt with it. And I came back and smiled, and I thought to myself, like, wow. And then I leave and I think, God, don't ever moan about anything. These kids are amazing. That the problems that they're facing, and they can still
to do something that simple.
Exactly. And
that we would take for granted.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you think about the things that we might get down about. You know, we might get down because a bird shits on the car or whatever. These children, to me, are just one of the biggest inspirations. I remember when I came to to the Christmas fair a couple of years ago, and I remember the girl who didn't have any feet.
Yes.
And do you remember, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. And do you remember what? And she could tell that I was a little bit. I don't know what the right phrase is. I was a bit nervous. Do you know what she said to me? She said, "I forgot to put my feet on today." She made a joke of it. And I was like, she's actually noticed that I feel a little bit, uncomfortable. And she's going to have her way to make me feel good.
And I think what you need to understand sometimes as well is that some of our young people start with everything, and we slowly watch them lose some of those things. Yeah. So, and not focusing on specific students because that would be unfair.
Sure.
But that is something that we have to deal with. But we deal with it in a really positive way.
Unbelievable.
Because it's the only way to deal with it. Because if you didn't, Simon, you would go, I'd end up like you, and I wouldn't be able to do the job, would I?
How do you personally do that? Like switch off, like create that boundary? Because that must be really, really difficult. And like Simon said, I
can't do it.
I wouldn't be able to do that. Like I'm a very emotional person too. So.
She blubs on most podcasts. She'll be blubbing today at some point.
How do you kind of shut that door when you go home?
Well, you don't. That's the answer.
You just drink a lot of gin,
I don't want to talk for everybody, but I don't.
Sure.
Because I don't do that. I can't do that. So I do feel emotionally and is responsible for all the students that pass through my care. But what you do see is that you see something that. So you would see something that they can't do, and I would see a way of thinking, okay, so how are we going to teach them to compensate for that?
Sure.
Because that's not okay. Saying, oh, actually, they can't do that, so they need to do, no, wait a minute, wait, pull that back. They can't do that right now, so how are we going to do something? What are we going to change so they can do it?
Yeah.
So it's about not focusing on the sad side and seeing the really positive side, because if you saw the two young people that you've just spoken about now, you would be very surprised at
probably
how far they have now come.
A blubbering mess, probably. Yeah.
They have come in a completely. So the route has been
amazing.
So it's about not writing a script.
Sure.
Don't write the script. They have this, and this is what we talk to parents about all the time when they first get diagnosis for their young people. Don't write the script because you do not know what's going to happen at the end.
How good is that piece of language? Don't write. How good is that? You think of the number of people that. So I don't know if that's the right. Maybe a lot of people see the disability or whatever you call difficulty. Whatever the phrase is. Whereas what you're saying is, don't write the script. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Can I just pull back onto Leanne's point about disassociation? So having watched my dad do this job for a number of years, I don't think my dad was able to switch off. No way. You do or you don't? How do you do it? Gin?
I don't need to.
Gin?
No, I'm not admitting to that. I refuse. I'm not getting sucked into that one. No, I don't need to. Why do I need to?
I'll tell you the reason I'm asking the question is because we have a lot of teachers in the gym. They teach from all sorts of schools.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that it's probably difficult for all teachers to switch off.
Yeah.
Because you probably, if you see a child struggling or whatever, maybe you take it home with you.
Yeah.
But maybe that's magnified in your role.
Yeah.
I know it would be for me. I take home all the stray dogs is what a friend says about me. I take it on board.
But I have confidence in the system.
Sure.
I have confidence in the staff.
Sure.
We have an incredible relationship with our families.
Yeah.
We have an incredible support network in Torbay as a whole. So it's not me alone.
Sure.
So I know teachers do get very stressed out, and I can understand all of that, and I can see all of that. For me, I'm doing a job I love. I wake up every morning wanting to go to work. I find the holidays the most frustrating because I don't want to not go to work. So I don't feel that way.
So you found your calling. You found your calling.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. I wouldn't do anything else.
You're obviously in charge of hiring and firing. When you're going through that process, are there specific traits that you wouldn't employ me because I'd be a gibbering wreck?
Your language was no way. One, your language.
Can you just say that again?
You're a bit of a wetty, so that's no good to me because they don't need that. They need confidence, not a wetty.
Listen. When I was playing cricket the other day with some of your students, I did make an extra effort to not be a wetty. I was mega over the top, positive, throwing the balls at them and trying to be hard. I made a
Yeah.
I might have been wetty 20 minutes
High
later.
expectations. Chuck in those expectations. Keep them high.
Yeah, you're right.
And they'll always rise to it.
Are there traits? For example, if I come, you're not going to employ me because I'm too wet. Do you look at them and think, I actually need a teacher who can switch off or can not write the script, not like me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't write the script. There is a phrase, but I won't use it here because obviously that's the wrong phrase, because then I would be back in your language. But you've got to give a hoot.
Right.
When you talk to people about our young people and you talk about different scenarios and we talk about how they learn and what they need, you can tell when people are applying for a job because they're applying for a job and it suits their, they've their parents themselves and they need the holidays off, or when somebody's applying for a job because they give a hoot. And I only want people who give a hoot.
Who give a hoot.
I think that is so true with anyone that works with people, full stop. Like in our job as well, like you have to demonstrate that you really care about someone and pushing them through their journey, whether it's personal training or teaching or whatever. Yeah. So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, Leanne's calling is helping people to lose weight, and she normally starts blubbing when we start talking about that. So I'm not the only wetty on here.
No.
Giving me
I'm probably worse than him.
She's worse than me.
And I think so. Then you've got 3 people here who are passionate about what they do and how much they love what they do, which is 100%. Why I think if you have that, then coming to work is it's not about switching off, is it? Because you don't really need to switch off on something you love.
No.
Yeah, that's
we talked about in our weight loss. We talked about if we could give people the gift of purpose. So if we could help people kind of uncover, what their calling was or what their purpose was, how their food choices would just change as a consequence, rather than focusing on the food choices. Yeah. I say to a lot of athletes, the greatest thing I can do for you is give you the gift of purpose. Yeah. Okay. Are there one of the things I've been thinking about actually from Winners 2000 perspective is support for the trainers with regards to say having something to unload and like counselling, because I'm aware that they work one-to-one with a lot of people and sometimes things can get unloaded. Mm-hmm. Does that exist for teachers in education? Mm-hmm. And how new is that? Because I don't remember it years ago when my old man was doing.
Well-being is the biggest thing, isn't it, at the moment? Health and well-being is the biggest thing. So, as a school we offer it. In Torbay, teachers get free counselling, etc., etc. And they're fantastic for that. Yeah. But when you work in an environment like ours, where we're supporting children all day who are having some pretty tricky days, as you can imagine, yes. You've already got a very supportive staff team. So at the end of the day, at 3:00 when the children get on that bus, the staff team then support each other. Yeah. And that's how it works. Yeah. And, we have that in tricky days, or when we lose children, because we have life-limited children, and that happens too. And so then that's a really hard time. That's a very difficult, from the finding it out yourself to then informing the staff team to then how you're going to inform the other children because their friend isn't there. Oh, it's all of those things. So the people that you've employed have got all of those skills that they not only support the students, but they can support each other. So the morale and the team of Mayfield is incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, I actually remember one of your students. I remember a conversation with him. I think he was about 16. I've never forgotten this. He was the spray painter.
Yes.
And I said to him something along the lines of, do you want to spray paint my gym in the summer? And he said to me, I can't. So I thought he said, I was going to be moving away. Yeah, you can guess what I'm going to say, can't you? And I remember being like, and that took me a bit of a while to get over that one. So yeah. Anyway, you're making me well up here. Yeah?
We should have bought some tissues. No one warned me this is going to be this hard.
Listen, if we're going to have guests on, we got to man up a little bit, all right?
Yeah, you do.
Do you know what I mean? So we've talked a little bit about, say, the teachers and some of the traits. I want to come back to teachers in a little bit with regards to if people watch this and they think, listen, that's my calling, which I think some people will do. We're going to come back to how they get into it, but I thought we should talk a little bit about the children. Yeah. So obviously, I have a fairly good understanding of the type of challenges your children face, but I think it'd be good for our members to understand. Could you try and give an example of, say some of the difficulties? I hope I'm using the right word again. Some of the difficulties, some of the challenges that they face.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, young people are, when being a mum, so I've got four children, and being a mum, when you're pregnant, you have an expectation and you've written a script. However much you think you haven't, you've written a script. So you've written a script, they're going to have this child, and then they're going to go off to nursery, and you're going to go back to work, and then they're going to go to primary school, and then they're going to go to secondary school, and they're going to have girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever it might be, and there'll be all of this along the way, and they're going to get a job, they're going to leave home. Then you realise that that's just completely changed. So for our children, those things don't go in that order. So the order of their lives has completely changed. The expectation around what they can achieve has been changed by everybody else around them. So that, and for our young people, so we've got, you know, young people, for the difficulties that you're talking about are young people who are autistic, for example. And if you've ever YouTubed what it's like to be autistic and you watch it, and then there's loads of short clips out there about what it's like, and our students have explained it, what it sounds like, what it's like to be autistic. It's a crazy world to be in, and it's a very scary world to be in. So, you know, you've got young people who then dysregulate because of the autism, but to the outsider looking in, they're naughty, they're being, you know, their behaviour's shocking, etc., etc. But that's not true. You know, no child is naughty. That it doesn't exist. This is a dysregulation of behaviour because they can't manage. So you've got children like that. Then you've got children with profound learning difficulties. So children who, you know, who can't walk and or are peg fed, or who have support to breathe, etc., etc. So there are so many different types of children at school who with all different conditions, and there's lots and lots of conditions out there which form traits that these young people have. So the traits are there for us. We can see it. You know, we can see a little one come through the doors, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't need to read the paper.
Do you have training on how to recognise those things?
Yes. So what we do is we do that a lot in-house. So we do a lot of in-house stuff around how a child would present if it was alcohol, you know, fetal alcohol stuff, how a child would present like that. So that's one type of thing. If a child has had is autistic, how are they going to present? But of course, autism is a scale from here to here. So autism, Asperger's and autism, it's completely different for every single person that's got it. And then you've got all of those other Williams syndromes, all of the other syndromes where a lot of people might not understand and how that presents. So we train all of our staff about that, what that looks like. And then anybody who's working in that class, we give them all the information, all of their history, what it looks like for them, and the most important thing is how they need to be taught and how they learn. And then obviously how they communicate, because communication is the key to everything that we do.
That was going to be my next question, actually, is just the challenge of knowing when they are communicating. That was my next question, was about the difficulties of communicating. Some say, well, not verbal, are they? And it's difficult to even judge.
No.
It's even difficult for me, perhaps, to judge if what I'm saying and doing is having any impact. Is that relevant for most of them? You know, if I'm talking to some of your pupils, sometimes I think, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah. So I think the thing for communication for me is that most people on the outside in think communication is one of the easiest things in the world. I talk to you, you hear it, you understand it, you give me the feedback. Well, that's not real. In our world, it doesn't always work like that, because there's a circle. So the circle of communication, there's loads and loads of stuff in the circle. So there's why we communicate, what we want to communicate, how we communicate, how we begin given the opportunity to communicate. What is it I'm trying to communicate? Can I see it? Can I hear it? Can I see you? Can I hear you to communicate? And then once you've got that communication, do I understand that part of the communication? So it's not a simple, and all of those elements need to be there for you to say, can I have a drink, please?
Yeah.
So any one of those things that has been broken down, not being able to know what you want, not being able to say what you want, not being able to understand what you want, somebody else not, and you, certainly when you're autistic and you can't make any, you can't look at somebody face to face to ask for something, how are you going to then ask for a drink? How are you going to initiate asking for that drink? So there's so many things that changes communication.
Yeah.
So it's very simple for me, and it's very simple for you. It is not very simple for our children.
I think the next step I was going to say is, how do you plan their activities? So, for example, how do you plan? You talked about not having a script.
Yes.
And you talked about, okay, here's the problem.
Yes.
So, say a school has a curriculum, and we go in and we study geography and we study maths, etc.
Yeah.
How on earth, with the very individual and specific needs of how many students you say you have?
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that.
Right.
So you have a curriculum. Of course, you have a curriculum, but a curriculum is designed to give you the guidance of what it is that your students want to learn.
Yep.
So I know what my college curriculum is, and I set out this curriculum, and I think these are the areas I want them to learn. But they're not going to learn it by me standing in front of them and teaching them like you and I were taught when we were at school.
Yeah.
So a lot of our children, they need to be taught through the back door, incidentally, in a different room, in a different way. They might be taught through, you are going to have to sing it. It's the only way it's going to work. You might have to, Johnny's 3 years old, and he's under a table and he's autistic and he won't come out from under the table. So what are you going to do about it? Get under the table.
Sure.
Go and sit under the table. That's the new classroom. Go under the table with Johnny. So sitting in a circle, sitting at a desk, doesn't matter.
So you've got to be able to adapt.
Totally.
It's problem solving, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's problem
of course.
solving.
And of course, we're then teaching our young people to have those skills of being able to sit and to do all of those things. But you've got to give... I know young people who have, didn't learn to sit at a desk until they were 9 years old. So, they were being taught whilst they were running around the classroom.
Yeah.
And if that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
Yeah. So there's almost an element of the teacher has to be well skilled to recognise some signs and symptoms.
And how to teach them.
Yeah, and then they've got to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And it's almost an element of reacting, I suppose, rather than being...
And then how are they going to be taught? So we use a lot of, obviously, we teach them visually. Then you have to teach them systematically. So it has to be done broken down in steps. So, even if you think of a skill, say a life skill, and you're teaching them to hoover, for example.
Yeah.
You've identified this young person. They've come up right through Mayfield, and eventually they'd like to go into supported living. So they'd like to live with friends, like you and I did when we left home, etc. And they go into a supported living environment, and so therefore they need to learn those general the basic life skills that they can get them through. So when you're teaching a young person like hoovering, you break down that skill into achievable steps.
Right.
But what you do is, so let's say there's 3 areas to hoovering, isn't there? There's getting the hoover. What is the hoover? Where is the hoover? Who is the hoover? Then you've got to plug the hoover in, then you've got to use the hoover. So you've got those 3 steps. Now what we tend to have is, we have a student, I can say, okay, such and such, if you go and get the hoover, and they'll go and get the hoover because they've learnt that.
Right.
It's rehearsed.
Yeah.
And then I've moved to the hoover. Now we've got a problem. Because it's not hoover they understand. It was me giving the instruction that they understood. I'm stood here and I'm doing this. They didn't understand the word hoover. So then you've got to make sure that they understand what that is.
Yeah.
And then they can use the hoover, because that's quite repetitive. Hoovering's quite simple. The same square. But then you might ask them to do additional moving square. But the other side of it is plugging it in, and you think, I can't plug it in, because a parent at home is so anxious about them using electrical items, they don't let them plug them in at home. And so skills are transferable.
Got you.
Yeah.
And skills are transferable, and the skills that they're not allowed to try are transferable.
Yeah.
So there are so many elements. So something as simple as teaching a young person to hoover, for you and I, is, okay, here's the hoover. If you go and grab it, it's in the cupboard around the corner. Shoot up here. Can you just hoover the room over there? And I'll see you in a minute. That's not going to happen. They can't do that. That's too much information to process. So it's about teaching children and young people skills systematically. Break it down, and then find the bit, why can't they do this?
Sure.
I really love that you teach them skills that they need for moving on in life, because obviously I wasn't taught any of that at school, like cooking and cleaning and stuff like that, but they are fundamental things that you need to know how to do. So I think it's really, really cool that you really break it down and teach them the habits they need, so that they can be a little bit more independent when maybe they leave college.
I think that moves us on to expectations.
Yeah.
So, for example, maybe Kuhn Pavitt said, listen, our expectation was trying to get them into further education or to employment.
Yes.
it's probably difficult for you to sort of give a general answer about expectations for your pupils, but what would sort of be, I don't know if it's in your mission statement or something, what would be your expectations when this person leaves my care at Mayfield? They're going to have...
That they will be the best that they can be.
Sure. Is that open-ended?
That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
So, don't write the script, don't write the plan, take them through, find that thing that excites them, find it. And that's the biggest part. Find the thing that they really, really like doing. Now, that could be anything to do with computer game, it could be gaming, it could be running, it could be swimming, it could be cooking, it could be any of those things. And it could be creative, and teach them through that.
Sure.
And then it's about matching what those skills are and getting them out into the community and showing the community out there what they're really good at and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And you don't need to give them a vast job.
No.
You don't need to give them the expectation that they can do the same as you and I can do, because what they can do is what they can do.
Yeah.
But what they can do, they do really well. If you want your shelves stacked in your little shop, honestly, employ somebody autistic.
Yeah.
They are incredible because they don't get it wrong. It's exact, and that's what you want. So those skills are needed. We need those skills.
Yeah.
So we need to use those skills.
And you've had quite a few successes, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we were talking about a few right at the beginning.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about some of the...
Okay, so I did become increasingly frustrated that we couldn't get our young people into employment, but I'm talking about realistic employment here. I'm not talking about, for some of our young people, it isn't a realistic expectation that they are ready to manage that, not at 19. And in many ways, post-19 provision for us would be great, because sometimes they're not emotionally ready to go, they haven't got those skills yet. But for me, there is an expectation that for some, they could gain employment, and even if that's where they're doing voluntary or whether they're 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, whatever it might be, or full-time, whatever it would be. But it's about finding those skills and then showing the employer what that really looks like in terms of that young person. So, we were talking, there was one year group particularly where 4 young people in that year group were placed into businesses in Torbay, all local businesses in Torbay, and all 4 of them are still employed by those companies.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, our experience of, say, your students has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I couldn't recommend your students highly enough. I'm sure there are plenty of our members who run local businesses. If they wanted a reference for the qualities in terms of all the things you talked about, reliability,
Totally.
Just the passion to do the most simple tasks.
Yeah.
Take someone from Rachel.
You won't get anybody more enthusiastic.
No, and
because they're so passionate about working, they're so passionate about doing it, and doing it right.
Do you think there is like a bit of a barrier when it comes to trying to get these kids into employment that needs to be addressed? Like, people need to be more open to it and more, more willing to accept.
I think there's an anxiety around it. I think there's an anxiety that they don't understand it. But if you don't understand something, then you learn it, don't you?
Yeah, we talked a little bit previously, didn't we, about it can be beneficial both ways. So I think the qualities that student might bring actually can rub off on the other people that are employed there.
Totally.
So that, let's say if I had 8 people who weren't particularly motivated and they were okay and they weren't particularly passionate, and then I had one who was incredibly, that person becomes the 200 degreer that lights the rest up.
Yeah.
So I think it certainly can happen that way. Maybe we should make a bit of a, if we're talking probably to a lot of employers here, what should we say to them? Give them a chance and recognise the benefits they can bring to your culture and to other employees. And
I think if there's, absolutely, and I think if there's an anxiety, then talk to people like me, talk to people like us about what that actually would look like. Yeah,
just to go back a step, you were saying things like stacking shelves and that. Would there be sort of very specific types of job that you would say, listen, my students will be brilliant? Is there anything else apart from the shelves and stuff you can think of? Any examples?
So I've got 2 cooks out there, two breakfast chefs out there at the moment, because breakfast chefs actually prepare the same.
Right.
And it's very ordered and it's sequenced.
Right.
Which is how we teach them. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then another person who is just film orientated, film mad, is working at the cinema, and because they can manage talking to people, they'll do all of the stuff around the cinema and clearing up the cinema and stuff like that. I wouldn't put specific roles for our young people because they're all different. I've got young people out there now who just would love to work in a hairdresser's. Now the reality of it is I don't say to her, yes, I'm going to get you a job in a hairdresser's and you're going to colour people's hair and you're going to do this and you're that. I am realistic about it.
Yeah.
You know, but she should have the opportunity to experience that. She could work in the hairdresser's.
Yeah.
Give her the job that you know that she can do, and she'll do the job really, really well.
Yeah.
But there's a fear around that, a fear around not understanding and how they need supporting and how much support they are going to need. But what you've also got to remember, if there are employers out there who would do that, then let us place them as work experience placements first and see whether, and then you're secure, we're supporting it, give somebody a chance, that's all it is.
Yeah, my next question was actually going to be about a gap in the service. I was going to say to you, listen, you know, what gap exists, but it seems to me like perhaps the biggest gap might be a lack of understanding or awareness about the benefits that some of your students could bring to someone's business.
And it's not, I don't think that's purposeful.
Right.
I don't think people out there say, oh no, I don't want anybody with a additional needs or a learning difficulty with me. It's because they're fearful of it. But don't be fearful of it, because these young people are phenomenal. They're phenomenal young people who can achieve so much, and you know that.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people pass through me over the years that have shocked me. They've surprised me, and I have really high expectations for them. So, you know, don't ever expect. They will achieve everything they want to achieve.
Yeah.
They just need some additional help along the way. That's all it is.
I think as well, like employers maybe don't know that they can come to you for support. I think that's if there is anyone local that is looking for additional staff, that maybe they should approach you and say, look, we've got gaps in our staffing, is there anyone that can fit the bill? So it's great that you offer support to employers to give them, break down those barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some great work experience placements out there at the moment, which are fantastic. So, and I'm always very, very grateful for those work experience placements. And it's been really interesting to see the students grow, the staff at the placements grow, and then obviously the bosses grow. And every year it's, are you happy for us to come back? Oh yeah, more than happy for you to come back.
Yeah,
because
great.
The job gets done. Eh?
Yeah. We talked earlier about how the service has evolved. I think one of the questions I had for you was, what's missing? So if I go back to, say, 1980, my memory of everything that was missing at Combe Pafford, where are we now? What's still missing? As someone that's been involved in it for 20 years or 25 years, what do you think, listen, we still don't have this, we need this, what's missing?
Okay, I think the early help that families, I mean, there's an early help team that families receive now or they can gain access to now when the children are born is phenomenal in Torbay.
Sure.
I think the education and the support in Torbay, whether it be Mayfield, whether it be Combe Pafford, I think the education is superb in Torbay for these young people. It's the next steps that worry me, and it's always been the next steps that worry me. What I would hate to see, and what I always worry about, is that we do it, the families do it, other professionals do it. They put a lot of time into these young people, and the young people have worked so hard. And what you don't want them to do is tip off the other end.
When they leave.
Yeah. So most young people in mainstream education do go into a sort of category.
Right.
They're going to go into an apprenticeship because they're not that academic, etc., but they're really good, you know, with the hands, and they're really good at those skills. So they're an apprenticeship, and then you've got your clever ones who are very academic who go off to university, and
Sure.
then, you know, so there's a couple of obvious choices, and you know for your children, and I know for mine, that's where they kind of tend to go, or they go straight into work. You know, they're not your uni person. They want to earn money. Money is the thing that excites them. So off they go and they do that. For our children, there's a little bit of pigeonhole still going on,
Right.
and you can't pigeonhole those children. You can't put them in just 3 offers.
Yeah.
What you need to do is be more flexible. So the thing for me that's missing is people like employers, like people in the community who can offer something
Sure.
to give those young people another life experience other than the ones that are being mapped out for them.
So the fix for that, as Leanne said, might be some awareness,
yes,
and some education for us employers,
yes,
and for us employers that have maybe experienced some of your pupils to talk about the real positive things that we've had.
Yes.
So maybe that's...
And also, if one of your members has got a company and actually, they want to refile their filing systems, they want to do these certain jobs, they want to do certain things within their companies, give our students a chance. And it's because they get to learn a new skill. They get to learn, so I can have them with me and they can learn a skill. Then they've got to transfer the skill. So then you've got to test to see whether they can transfer that skill. So it means, so for Leanne, for example, if Leanne was running the company, would they be able to do the same thing for Leanne that they've done for me?
Sure.
And there's going to be discrepancies about that because Leanne may say it's slightly different, it's not as visual, blah, blah, blah. So you learn to transfer those skills. But if we don't have those opportunities for our young people, we can't see what they can achieve.
Yeah.
I know what they can achieve, but I need to move it forward.
So do you think like work experience placements and stuff
incredible.
like that?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Sounds like an objective for our instructors, doesn't it?
Come on, everyone.
Yeah.
Work experience for Mayfield
100%.
students.
I think that's going to be one of my questions when we close today is like, what could we do?
Yeah.
That sounds to me like that we might have already the answer to that. Okay, so that's the biggest gap in the service. I want to talk about parents a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think that was something that until probably the last few years I never really considered. I never considered how difficult it might be for some of the parents, and I started thinking about what support exists for the parents. So how do the parents get help dealing with it?
Okay, so there are teams out there, and there are some phenomenal teams of people out there once you get that diagnosis. I think what you have to understand is for our parents, they go through a sense of bereavement. They've lost the child that they thought they were going to have.
Sure.
And they've now got this child.
Got you.
And they need to then understand the fundamentals around what this child is going to need and take it through. So there's a huge amount of support that needs to go into place. And now some parents fly. Some parents get it, fly with it, can manage it, will take their young people out into the community knowing that they're going to become dysregulated, knowing that everybody's going to stand and stare as they do, etc., etc. But they've got the confidence to do that. And then there are other parents who just can't, who really struggle with it, who just get lower and lower or become more and more separated from talking to other people about their child because they feel that their child is different. What we do is ensure that we know our parents really well. We know what they've done. We know where they go. We know we do all the social clubs and all the activities, and we put into place for those parents that need that additional support. We offer a lot of intervention into the house or into their lives so that we can support where we can, and then the parents can get the education in order to manage their young people.
You used the word respite there. Where do we stand kind of with the level of respite care or respite opportunities with regards to, say, support services? So, for example, when the child leaves Mayfield at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, obviously that could be a long night for the parent.
Yes.
Where do we stand? What's the level of support for them in terms of after-school stuff? Is it good, bad, dreadful?
It's not dreadful.
But it's not enough.
But it's not enough. There's nowhere near enough.
Give our viewers an idea about how challenging it could be to have one of your students from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 o'clock in the morning, because I actually think probably our viewers don't really understand.
Okay, I mean, obviously this is very student dependent. So if you're looking at one of our high need students who needs a lot of support, then I would say, if you think about having a person of, say, 16 years old who comes home at 3 o'clock and cannot be left in a room on their own, and the reason they can't be is because, they fiddle with the plugs, they open the window, they'll jump out of the window, they've got no sense of danger, there's no self-protect in them, they don't have that. So therefore you need to do that. They'll turn on ovens, they'll turn off, and they'll turn on taps, forget they turn on the tap, and then they'll flood the place, etc., etc. So they need to be with that young person the entire time, and then you have dinner and there's a meltdown because dinner isn't what they wanted, and actually they haven't communicated what they want because they don't know how to communicate what they want, and it's the wrong colour, or it's the wrong shape, or it's the wrong time, or it's the wrong plate, or you're sat in the wrong seat, or it could be 101 them want things, or there's a sound outside that you can't hear but they can hear and it's made them feel very dysregulated, etc. So where you think dinner is going to be a very normal event, it's not a normal event. And then, you know, you've been at work all day, perhaps potentially as a parent, or your partner's been at work all day potentially as a parent, and then it starts to become frustrating. Sleep is an obvious real issue. We have a lot of young people that really struggle with sleep.
Right.
Sleep is a really, really hard thing for them. So one of the young people that I can think about would probably sleep 2, 3, possibly 4 hours a night.
Wow.
That is it. So at 3 o'clock in the morning it all starts again. No. So at 3 o'clock in the morning it all starts again, so you're on your own. You know that you're waiting until, you know, you get that school bus coming and you can send that young person to school. But then as a parent, you're torn because you're very aware that your son, daughter has been awake since 3 o'clock, is going to be very tired and is now going to be very dysregulated at school. But the knock-on of that is if you don't send your young person to school knowing that it's going to cause them and they're going to be very tired, you can't catch up on the sleep. And if you don't catch up on the sleep, you've got a real problem. So there's a huge amount of guilt there too. Yeah. So for a parent, you're knowingly sending in a dysregulated child who you know is going to have a tough day. But if you don't do that, you're not protecting yourself, because at 3 o'clock we get back on it again. Yeah. And then on Friday, it's 3 o'clock Friday till 10 to 9 Monday.
Yeah, I think you've explained that incredibly well by covering, for example, you use the word guilt. So, as a parent, like you say, you want to do everything for your children, but as you say, they're probably tired. These people don't get a lot of sleep, and
they're really tired.
I mean, I have a young baby in the house who doesn't sleep a lot, but of course, my hope is in the next couple of years he maybe sleep a little bit more. But as you're saying, for a lot of these parents, it's never going to change.
No.
It is. I was thinking, look, what else could the community do for these? Is it literally that there just needs to be more funding for respite and more?
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Where would you say the level of availability for respite is at the moment? So
at the moment the availability is, it's not awful, don't get me wrong. So we do offer, we offer extended days at school, and a lot of our staff do respite services where they'll go in and they'll keep the young people after school and take them for a long walk or whatever it might be and support those young people. A lot of my girls who have passed through this system and have supported me with children at school in the past have had students on Saturdays and Sundays, and for some of our students they do get overnight respite because they need it. I think the biggest thing is there's just not enough of it. Sure. And the reliance is always on our school staff, and that's really great because our staff are amazing, but there does need to be additional to that. Yeah. There needs to be a bit more of that. But I have to say, Torbay, and I'm probably, you think I'm a bit biased, but Torbay, the offer in Torbay is phenomenal. Yeah. There are certain areas of respite that doesn't simply exist in Torbay, right. And that's for those really challenging young people who are under 18. That provision doesn't really exist for overnight respite, and that's a real problem. Yeah. Over 18, yes. Under 18, no. So for those families, they really, really do have it tough.
And I'm guessing because it's such a highly skilled job, this isn't the sort of thing that someone can volunteer and say, I'll provide respite. No. It's just not possible.
No.
What about is there any benefit in, say, group respite, where perhaps, is that something where you had 2 qualified teachers and maybe there's some volunteers with them? Does that exist, or is that just not doable?
No, of course it exists. We do that. I do that. So at the college we've got a flat. We created a flat. In order to teach young people life skills, they need to understand it in context. So we created a flat, and it's a fully living flat. So it's got bedrooms. Our young people never get sleepovers with their mates. It's a very normal thing for our kids to do, but they don't get it. So we do that. We give it them. So we let them sleep over at school and we support them, but we take them through the process of what that actually looks like. Yeah. So they're shopping for their dinner, opening the fridge and realising there is no dinner because mum isn't there. Oops. Shopping for their dinner, making their dinner, they're doing it together, they choose a movie together, and have a sleepover together, etc. And we support them to do that. And it's a really, really valuable thing, because of course that is what supported living is going to look like. So in order to manage in supported living, they need to rehearse everything they do, so we need to rehearse it with them. So that does exist. Shared respite does exist. There's a really great shared respite provision which is in Totnes that our young people access, and that's a really great provision too. There's just not enough of it, Simon. The fact of the matter is we get more and more children waiting to come in. Our numbers are increasing all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And there just isn't enough provision out there.
You see where I was leading with this. My point was, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of our members that watch this and think, wow, that's something that I would really like to get involved in.
And they should.
Yeah. So
family to family respite that you can do.
Yeah.
If you think you've got the confidence to help and do something, then you really, really should. You should go on and contact Torbay and actually say, I think I could do something here. I think I could help.
Yeah.
And you would be supported and trained to do that. Our young people go to family to family because actually in a shared respite it's not ideal. To go to another family and feel the support of another family is what they need, and it's invaluable because that parent, you might be up a bit overnight, and I get that, and that's tough, but that parent gets a night's sleep that they don't normally get. And in other families, for our other families who have got profound young people who are really poorly, are some of our children, you've got one parent stays up all day and one parent stays up all night. They don't unless they get respite, they don't have anything. Because they don't feel confident to go to sleep because they're not leaving their child.
I think what you've just described and the challenges, I think probably a lot of our members would never even think of that, and I think for me, I never really considered that until maybe the last 5-10 years, how tough it is for the parents. It's never ending.
It's awful. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And there's a lot of, I've met parents before who said they felt they were failures.
That's tough.
And they're not failures at all. It's it's just seeing it in a different. It's showing our parents that actually no parent is a failure. What you are is you're exhausted. You're tired. You're exhausted,
Absolutely.
and life is tough. But it doesn't need to stay this way.
No.
We can support, and that's why we do everything we can do to support communication for our children, so that there's some route through for our children. So the meltdowns or the dysregulation reduces, and the families can cope a little bit better.
I wonder, as we're talking about, what can our membership do, to help? There's two things that jump out at me about the work experience placement is number one, and then the second thing is about there's a great need for respite care, and if people watch this and are a little bit drawn to it, there's a massive need for people on a job. This is an amazing job, pretty challenging, but there's training available.
But there's training available, and the difference that you make to families, it's phenomenal. The difference that you would make to families.
I can imagine. So let's come back to the job and the career. If there are people watching this thinking, I've always thought about becoming a teacher, what would your advice be to them about choosing to work with children with learning difficulties? Where should they start? Should they just knock on your door and say, can I come and volunteer and do a bit of work experience?
Completely. I think you need to see it, feel it, be in it, understand it, communicate with our children,
not be a wetty.
See that, not be a flipping wetty, no. Have the empathy, understand it all. There's everything. You need to have the whole thing. We have teachers who are training to be teachers who pass through, because all teachers now, as part of their training, do a special needs section, so they might be with us for 6 weeks over at the main site, where they work with teachers over at the main site to see what that is for special educational needs, because obviously there's a lot of special educational needs in mainstream schools too. It's not just in special schools, so they do have that, and you can kind of tell by day 2 the ones that are going to manage this and the ones that aren't, and you can also tell by day 2 the ones that have gone, I never even considered special educational needs, but I so want to do this.
Having been around, say, quite a few and having relationships with lots of teachers at, say, Coombe Pafford and at Mayfield, etc., the one thing that strikes me was what you said about, you knew instantly, this is what I wanted to do. In my experience, that tends to be very common, and they never look like they're working.
No.
They never look like they're working. They look like they give in service, and I'm sure it's very, very tough, but it looks like the rewards that they're getting are phenomenal. I mean, if somebody said to me, listen, I was thinking of going to work with children with difficulties, what do you think? I would say, listen, it's going to be bloody tough at times, but the rewards that you will get will be greater than anything you can get in your bank account or anything else. I think the feelings of accomplishment, certainly that's been my experience, seeing, like, say, my dad do it, and then lots of my friends, who work there and stuff now. So
we do what you do. What you do is you focus on on the people who pass through these doors, and you change their lives. You change their confidence. You give them a quality of life that they didn't think they'd have. They hold their heads higher, don't they? They feel better about themselves. They get the whole deal. We do it. We do it with the children as they grow up. You might have this, but we're going to teach you everything we can teach you to compensate for not being able to do that. We're going to teach you this. And we've got a young man that we employ at Mayfield who was 3 to 1, so 3 adults to 1 when he was little.
Yeah.
I remember him very well. And he'd climb on the roof, and he'd be on the shed, and he was all over the shop. He now works as an assistant caretaker for Mayfield, and he's incredibly proud, and I'm so proud of him, because he's gone from here to here.
Yeah.
And that parent, but again, the parent of him is phenomenal. Yeah. Never for 1 minute did she allow the fact that he would not get a job, he would not sort this issue out, sort all of this stuff out. Yeah. So he went from being 3 to 1 and being very dysregulated autistic to actually, I'm going to learn how to manage this, and now he's working.
That's amazing.
He's a top guy.
In terms of your career, what were the steps you had to take to become in the position you are? You said obviously that you knew from the instance you saw the kids. Did you then have to go to uni and do a teaching degree? Or?
Well, I couldn't do that because I'd got 3 children at home and I needed to earn money. So I was in a very privileged position to have gone. So I went in as a teaching assistant, and I had sat in front of June, and I told her who I was and what I wanted to do. And so then I started working as a teaching assistant, and within a couple of years, she changed everything. She was the one who told me what I should be doing, how I should do it. So I did all of my qualifications at night when the kids were asleep. Wow. And then carried on working during the day because I couldn't afford not to. Yeah. But I was hugely supported by her to do that. Amazing. And I think I've learned from that, and I've done the same, I hope, for my staff team. When I think they really want to do something, then let's make it happen and we can support them to do it. So the routes aren't always leave school, go to uni, I want to be a teacher. The routes can come through, I've got a passion for this and actually somebody's going to help me. And so you can do it at Open University, you could do a degree through Open University, you can do it in evening classes. South Devon College do a lot of the teaching, and certainly if you wanted to teach post-16 education, that's really easy to get involved in. And you can do evening classes there. But if I was going to do it, I needed to be the boss of it. Yeah. That's how it worked out, because I'm a little bit like that.
A little bit like that?
Just a little bit. So I knew I was in it. I was passionate about it. I'd got an incredible mentor in June, and so therefore, why wouldn't I go and do it? And so then I went on and did it. I went on and did my teaching. Then the school got bigger and bigger and bigger, and so I went up with it. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
What's the better preparation and pathway in your view? The person that goes to university and does a degree, or the person that does it in situ? So I've got my view. What's yours? You were the expert.
I'm a situ girl.
So am I. Practical experience, common sense trumps everything.
Yeah,
give me that any day of the week.
Girl.
Yeah, not that I'm saying that teaching degrees aren't obviously very valuable.
I completely agree, and they are, and they're really great. And if it suits you, it didn't suit me.
No,
I needed to. I'm a do it person. I need to feel it. I need to understand it. And when you feel it and you understand it, and you experience it every day, and you're like, God, I'd do it like this. If it was me, I'd be doing it like this. Okay, I've got to do something about this.
So what do I need to do to be less of a wetty? What's my steps?
Yeah, you have got to man up a bit.
Man up a bit.
I think you've got to view it in a totally different way.
Sure, keep going.
Stop feeling, why you become emotional because you're feeling sorry and you're feeling guilty for them.
Sure, yeah. I think you're right.
Why are you feeling like that?
I don't know.
Because there's nothing to feel sorry about.
No. I think this would go back to my very young years, and I think, as I did before, not understanding that some of the play schemes, why were these children that were 16, 17, 18, why they couldn't do what I did when I was 6. Yeah. And I'm sure it'll all link back to that. There might be a bit of Freud here somewhere.
Yeah, that
with my pre-developmental years.
Don't get me wrong, we've all done it. I can remember a young person who's just left me last academic year and has moved on. But I remember remember the first time he ever walked, and he did it in assembly to go and get a certificate.
Wow. Gives me chills.
And June was just in tears. The whole staff team were in tears. The kids, well, they had never noticed, because what you've got to understand in the specials, they don't notice anything. Everything goes. It's wonderful. You know, you could do it. You could do it cartwheeling, and nobody's going to notice. So for us, that when this young man stood up from his little seat at the front and walked, 3 steps to June to get his certificate, was incredible.
Yeah.
But they're not tears of because I feel sorry. I'm tears because I feel guilty. They are then tears because I'm so flipping proud of you, because you've taken it by the bits and you've done it and you've moved it forward. That's why you feel the emotion.
Sure.
We need to cut because I'm getting well emotional over here.
So that's what I hope. That's what I hope our viewers take from this is, we call this "Get Your Mind Right," and that's why I wanted to bring you on, because I think a lot of your children are a great inspiration. So obviously, know some of your pupils, and some of them are a massive inspiration to me and give me massive strength. And I think playing cricket with your lot is probably the most fun thing that I do in my entire week, because I get to be a kid again, bowl as fast as I can, and get whacked in the river by one of them in particular who's very good at it.
He's very good at it.
He's very good at it. He's very good at it. Leanne, before you start blubbing uncontrollably, have you got anything else you'd like to ask Rachel?
Let me check my list. I was quite interested to know if I train quite a lot of local primary school teachers and teachers in the area, and I know they do get a lot very stressed around things like Ofsted and stuff like that. Does it work totally different from mainstream schools for you?
No.
You still have the dreaded Ofsted?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Human nature, isn't it? You do a really good job. You do a good job. You do a good job. I wouldn't do a job if I didn't think I was doing a good job, And you know that there always needs improvement. You know that there are things that you need to improve. And then somebody comes in to have a look at you, and you instantly go into that, maybe I'm not doing a good job, but maybe it's not the right thing to do. But Ofsted is a really big thing. Ofsted, of course, is a really big thing, because it's that snapshot of somebody walking in and giving a judgment on what they see in a snapshot. Yeah. And one that annoys me, something terrible, because
your physiology's just changed. I've never guessed you getting
because it shouldn't be seen in a snapshot. So I'm there. Okay, this is what this looked like, and this is how it started, and this is the end result. These are the outcomes. This is what they've achieved. This is what and it's that. You've got to give it quite a lot. So for teachers, they've got a lot to say and a lot to show in a very short period of time. So any teacher at your gym, when it comes to Ofsted, my God, they must run for miles because it is a very stressful time.
I never enjoyed Ofsted.
No, it is a really stressful time. And even though you're doing a great job, and I'm sure all your teachers are doing a great job, it's just being under scrutiny, isn't it?
Yeah. Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add? I've not known you talk this much.
Haven't you? No. Oh, I do. This is my favourite
subject. Maybe you just let her talk.
I'm not very good at that either,
no, apart from the fact that, winners is winners, and you and I have known each other a long time, and there is a passion around that, and there's we're trying to create different things, like we're trying to make a gym at the moment at the college so that our young people can experience the gym before they go to a gym.
Yeah, let's talk about this in a little more detail.
Because I really, really want that to happen.
Yeah, should we just as well, is there a few people we need to say thank you for some money?
Yeah.
Who's give you some money for it?
So far we've had a lot from one trust that I don't know will remain nameless.
Sure. Okay.
And
I was going to give them a big up. That was all.
We've had some other. We've been very, very lucky that we've got the funding. A lot of the funding for the main build of the gym, which is now started. What we don't have is any equipment in the gym. But if I can just give you the background of that. Our children, our young people, should I say, at the age group of mine, love gyms. This is the cool place to be, isn't it? I mean, it's a super cool place to be.
Of course it is,
and in he comes with his cap and
don't make it bigger.
Mr. Cool, here he is, blah, blah, blah. But a gym is a really sensory overload space.
Right.
It's a really sensory overload space because certainly when you've got autism, you can hear, you've got the radio going, you've got that guy over there who's coughing, you've got that guy who's drinking, the water machine's bubbling, this guy over here is running and you can hear the sound of that, but this one is cycling. And then behind me somebody's talking, and then you can hear just a little bit of music from their headphones, which is different to the music on here. And then the guy at the till at the door, and then there's a bleep, and so it's a really, really overwhelming space, but it's a really cool space to go to. So what we're going to do is, and there's obviously for that reason, we want to create a gym like we've created the flat, so that they can experience it in the real, so that it's real and they can experience all of that in a very safe and secure way, so we can transfer that out. Because our young people need to stay fit, they need to stay healthy. Sure. A lot of their conditions, they gain weight because they're on a lot of medication, and the medication makes them gain weight. So doing all of this is really vitally important to them.
Yeah.
But they need a place to be able to go and do it, and why shouldn't they be able to do it here?
100%.
So that's why we're doing what we're doing. We want the gym. What we don't have is any equipment at the moment because we have run out of money. So that's where I came to you and said, actually, can you help me?
And we were due for 5th of April, weren't we?
Yes. I really, really do need some help with that.
Yeah, I see. She always wants to be bloody money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
We are, and I think that's sort of as we come to the end today. That's the thing I'd like to say to our members. We've got some, phenomenal members who run their own businesses. We had free donations lined up from free great local businesses, and hopefully that will still come through when we do the event.
Yeah.
When the world finally returns to some sort of normality. But I think what I'd like to say to our members is, if anyone's an employer and has an opportunity to perhaps even just trial a work experience placement,
absolutely,
that would be absolutely amazing. If anybody's watching this and thinking, listen, I'm not sure what I want to do for a career, but I like the idea of trying to help and contribute to children that really need it, then there is a massive need for respite care. There's opportunities to get, say,
opportunities in school,
opportunities at the school, work experience.
There's jobs out now,
but you've got a real tough taskmaster that you've got to work for, who's gonna give you a wave a finger at you as she interviews you and stuff.
I'm nowhere near as grumpy as him.
Don't know about that. So that's what I say to our members, and then I'd like to say thanks very much for coming on, Get Your Mind Right, and making Leanne blub. She needs another avocado.
3 out of 4.
3
out of 4 crying.
And I'm big on our community. I think Mayfield is something that all of our communities should be incredibly proud of. I've said this before. We have 2 great grammar schools. We unfortunately lost Studley Knoll. Mayfield is an asset to this community. If anybody has a few quid in their pocket and they don't know what to do with it, throw it at Rachel.
Or time. I'm really happy with time. Sure. If people can give me time, we want to. Sometimes we want to develop the grounds. We want to put in a couple of our students. One wants to have a basketball hoop. We need to put some slat or some flooring down outside, etc. Give me a builder. Just give me somebody who's got a little bit of time.
Clive.
Just a bit of time. I don't mind. We'll fundraise or whatever for the stuff. I'm not asking everybody to pay for everything, but it's the skills I don't have. So if we could do that, then that would be brilliant.
Yeah, we got plenty of builders.
Loads of builders. We'll come and lay a patio.
Oh God, I don't want to see my patios. I'm not very good at that sort of stuff. Rachel, thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome.
You've done a great job. I really hope that this helps our members get their mind right. You got anything to say, partner, before we wrap?
Just thank you so much for coming. It's been so interesting and emotional.
Yeah, it was a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I need to go and have a lay down. Or an avocado. You did a good job, partner. See you next time.